Have you ever done the right thing, set the hard boundary, walked away from the chaos, and instead of feeling free, you just felt completely empty? You look around and sudden silence of your life, and then you start to panic. You ask yourself, did I just dream all that hurt up? Am I exaggerating my pain? Am I just being dramatic? If you're asking those questions right now, I'd like you to take a deep breath. You aren't crazy, and you aren't failing. You've just entered the most terrifying, painful, and necessary phase of personal growth. Before healing ever feels like freedom, it feels like a funeral.
Before we begin, welcome to Unapologetically Reborn. This isn't a podcast about quick fixes, positive thinking, or pretending the past didn't happen. These conversations are designed to challenge the way you understand yourself, your relationships, your nervous system, and the survival strategies that shaped your life. The goal of this podcast is to translate trauma into language that makes sense, so you can better understand your experiences, recognize your patterns, and explore yourself with greater clarity and compassion. This podcast is intended for educational and personal growth purposes. It is not a substitute for therapy, mental health treatment, medical care, or crisis support. If you find yourself becoming emotionally overwhelmed, please consider pausing the episode, practicing self-care, and reaching out to a qualified mental health professional for additional support. Healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about understanding who survival required you to become, and discovering who you are underneath the armor. If you're ready to have honest conversations, ask difficult questions, and explore what it truly means to heal, welcome to Unapologetically Reborn. This is where survival ends, and choices begin.
Welcome to Unapologetically Reborn, as we discuss the void from our series, The War Within. I feel like the workbooks are I feel like they're really an important piece to this series. Not only do they ask specific questions for you to think about, but because there's so much information on this podcast that we could go a lot longer than most people care to listen. And the workbook contains key terms to familiarize yourself with. You can access and download a copy of the workbook for each episode at www.unapologeticallyreborn.com. If you listen to our last episode, we ended standing right at the edge of a cliff. We pretty much talked about the invoice of growth. We talked about relationships that change, boundaries that burn down your old life, and the heavy realization that your survival identity basically it's died. When you spent a lifetime ignoring boundaries, the moments that finally speak up, it feels like they're an act of aggression. It feels dramatic because it's loud compared to the silence that you used to keep. You're not exaggerating your hurt. You're finally feeling for years. For years, you've numbed it, you've minimized it, you laugh it off just to survive at the end of the day. So now that you've stopped running, the full weight of that accumulated grief has finally caught up to you. It feels heavy, and that's because it is heavy. It feels like everything that you ever believed was a lie because you're finally seeing the truth without the filters of your old coping mechanisms. So why do it? Why not just turn around, apologize to everyone, and go back to the way things were? Well, because the version of you that survived the past cannot thrive in the future. The benefit of this agonizing confusion isn't a magical, flawless life. The benefit is reality. It's the breathtaking relief of finally standing on solid ground, looking at your life and knowing that whatever pieces are left are completely, beautifully, undeniably yours. So today we're going to talk about what happens the morning after this funeral. You did the hard thing. You stopped rescuing. You stopped people pleasing. You stopped, you chose peace over drama, You walked away from the chaos and you expected to feel free, but you don't. You feel empty. If you want to stop doubting your thoughts and your feelings, you have to understand exactly why you started doubting them in the first place. You didn't look at your gut instincts one day and randomly decide, hey, I think I'm going to stop trusting myself. You were trained to doubt yourself. Every time that you felt a red flag, you were told that you were being too sensitive. You learned to doubt. Every time that you voiced an emotional truth and it was met with anger, rejection, or gaslighting, your brain made a survival calculation. It's safer to believe I'm crazy than believe the people I love are hurting me. Self-doubt is a protective shield. You built it to survive in an environment where your reality wasn't welcome. But you aren't in that environment anymore. So how do we put the shield down? How do we feel comfortable in our decisions? Let's talk about that. First, step one, we're going to separate the first reaction from the true response. When a boundary is crossed or a decision needs to be made, you will feel two distinct voices. The first voice is incredibly loud, frantic. It's filled with panic. It screams, if I say no, they will leave me. Am I being dramatic? Am I making a mistake? This is not your intuition. This is a trauma response. Trying to keep you safe, you're using old patterns. We've discussed these. The second voice is quiet, heavy, and steady. It's a physical sensation in your chest or your gut. It doesn't scream. It simply states a fact. This doesn't feel right, or I need to walk away. To build comfort in your decisions, you must commit to honoring this quiet second voice, even if your hands shake while you do it. Comfort doesn't mean the absence of fear. Comfort means trusting yourself through the fear. You build self-trust the exact same way that you build trust with a friend, by keeping your promises to yourself. If your gut says stay home, stay home. Prove to your brain that you will no longer abandon yourself to make other people comfortable. When you finally make that choice, when you decide to stop outsourcing your reality to everyone else, when you look at the self-doubt and say, no, I know what I felt, and I'm standing by it, something terrifying happens. The old relationships that only loved your compliance will begin to drift away. The constant noise of trying to please everyone will suddenly fall dead silent. And you'll look around expecting an immediate reward. You'll expect the pristine, beautiful peace that the self-help books promised you. But it won't be there. Not yet. Instead, you will step out of your old life and you'll find yourself standing at the edge of a massive echoing expanse. The old you is completely gone, but the healed future version of you hasn't been built yet. You're basically suspended right in the middle. You're standing in the quietest, loneliest, most agonizing empty space a human being can experience. You've entered what we call the void. It's when the rescuer has to stop rescuing. Then they feel completely useless. When the people pleaser has to disappoint people, they feel drowning waves of guilt. When the invisible child has to be seen, their skin crawls with anxiety. When the overachiever has to sit still, they feel like an absolute failure because they don't know how to believe that they're enough without a trophy to prove it. If you're in the void right now, you're experiencing the identity crisis of a lifetime. You feel like a ghost in your own skin. You used to be the reliable one, the strong one, the one who handled everything. Now you're tired. You're messy. You're quiet. And the people around you are starting to notice. They're looking at you in the void and, saying things like you've changed. You're selfish now. You used to be fun. But what they're actually saying is you're no longer functioning from your trauma. And I don't know how to manipulate this new version of you. This is where the true test of the void begins. When the old life is gone and the new life hasn't shown up. The temptation to put your armor back on is overwhelming. The urge to pick up the phone, apologize for setting a boundary, and dive back into the chaos just to escape the emptiness is the hardest battle you might fight. But we aren't turning back, because in the next segment of this episode, we're going to look at exactly why this emptiness is actually your greatest power and how your relationships shift when you refuse to disappear anymore. Healing means bearing the hope that a toxic parent, an ex, or a friend will finally have an epiphany, look you in the eye and say, I see how much I hurt you. You have to learn to heal using an apology you are never going to get. So moving from constant hypervigilance, waiting for the next shoe to drop. In the void is when you realize that you aren't just losing things. You're making room for genuine peace, actual confidence, and relationships built on authenticity instead of fear. Think about your life like a massive tower of Jenga blocks. Every block represents a dynamic, a favor, a conversation, or a boundary. For years, you built your relationships by being the person who sat at the bottom of the tower, holding up all the weight. You were the block that said, I will always say yes. You were the block that said, I will rescue you from your own consequences. You were the block that whispered, I will apologize for existing just to keep you happy. The tower looks steady from the outside. Everyone loved the tower. Then you started healing. You walked up to that tower and you pulled out just one block. You set a tiny boundary. You said, no, I can't do that this weekend. Or please don't speak to me that way anymore. What happens to this tower? It wobbles. It shakes. Sometimes it completely crashes down, and here's the trap. When the tower falls, the people around you will point the fingers at you and they'll scream, look what you did. Look at the mess that you make. You've changed. You're selfish now. They want you to feel guilty. They want you to look at the wreckage and think that you're drama-filled. But I want you to look closer at the blocks on the floor. When you stop saying yes, you don't break a healthy relationship. You simply discover who's respected your heart and who only benefited from your lack of boundaries. If a relationship entirely dissolves the moment that you ask for basic respect, that relationship didn't depend on love. It depended on your compliance. It depended on an unhealthy, broken version of you staying small.
How long does the void last?
Well, there's no timeline. It isn't something that you graduate from after 30 days. For people, for some people it can last months, for others longer. A question to ask, I guess, would be, what's this season trying to teach me? Healing isn't something to rush. Identity takes time to grow. While healing can make you feel selfish, many survivors confuse self-care with selfishness because they were praised for sacrificing themselves. Explore why choosing yourself can initially feel wrong. When your family says that you've changed, this happens often. Talk about comments like, you've changed, you're sensitive, you've got too many boundaries. Think about those things with yourself. Have a private conversation with yourself. They might say, you think you're better than us. Compliments can feel uncomfortable. Many trauma survivors dismiss praise or immediately explain it away. How low self-esteem, worth past experiences can make receiving genuine kindness difficult. This can be an issue. Fear of making mistakes. So when mistakes once led to punishment, rejection, or chaos, even small errors can feel overwhelming. Learning that mistakes are part of being human and not proof of failure are important. Decision fatigue Decision fatigue is huge. Many survivors second guess every decision because they learn to anticipate everyone else's reactions. So healing involves trusting yourself again, even when there's not a guaranteed right answer. So when people miss the old you, sometimes people say they miss who you used to be. In reality, they may miss the version of you who didn't have boundaries.
Why do I miss people I know excuse my, why do I miss people I know weren't healthy for me?
Sorry. Because we don't actually grieve healthy relationships. We grieve familiarity. We grieve routines. We grieve hope. Sometimes we're not missing who they really were. We're missing who we hoped they would become. Or we're missing the role that they played in our lives. Missing someone doesn't automatically mean they belong back in your life. Feeling behind in your life, that's an issue. Many survivors they compare themselves to others and they feel they've lost years. You could talk about grieving lost time and recognize that your healing can begin at any age. Fear of success. Success can feel threatening. If standing out once led to criticism, jealousy, or danger, sometimes people unconsciously hold themselves back because being noticed doesn't feel safe. Learning to trust healthy people. Okay, it's one thing to leave unhealthy relationships. It's another to believe healthy relationships actually exist. This transition deserves its own discussion. Accepting that healing won't change the past. This is one of the hardest truths. Healing won't give you the childhood, the parents, or the years that you deserved. It changes how you carry the past, not the fact that it happened. The void feels quiet, and many survivors have lived with constant noise, arguments, chaos, overthinking, or always anticipating the next problem. So when life becomes quieter, the silence can feel unsettling instead of peaceful. You're waiting for the other shoe to drop. When life is going well, you may find yourself waiting for something bad to happen. The absence of danger can feel suspicious because your nervous system is used to preparing for the worst. We've discussed this. Missing the person that you used to be. Now, this is also huge. You may miss your old self, the one who always knew what to do, even if those behaviors were unhealthy. There's grief in leaving behind a version of yourself that helped you to survive.
What am I supposed to do while I'm in the void?
Don't rush to fill it. Sit with it. Learn from it. Rest in it. Reflect in it. Ooh, do I struggle with this? And have done this. And believe me, it will haunt you and you'll go back to the beginning.
Believe me, I know.
Yeah, this is a rough one. The temptation to replace your old life as quickly as possible is difficult, but growth often happens in quiet seasons. You don't have to have all the answers today. You just have to keep taking the next healthy step. So the urge to rush, this has totally been me. Many people become impatient with the void. They want answers immediately. New relationship immediately. Clear purpose immediately. Talk about how growth often happens underground before it's visible. Have this conversation with yourself. It's kind of like an analogy of a tree. Roots growing before a tree, before they begin to bloom. You can't see it. Something else, when nothing feels exciting. Some people describe the void as emotionally flat. They're not constantly anxious anymore, but they don't feel joyful yet either. So emotional numbness or neutrality can be a temporary stage. While the nervous system recalibrates, learning to be alone without feeling abandoned. Being alone and being abandoned are not the same thing. Trauma can blur these experiences, making healthy solitude. It feels frightening at first. The temptation to recreate chaos. Sometimes people unknowingly start arguments. They overcommit, return to unhealthy relationships, or create unnecessary drama because the chaos feels more familiar than calm. So, how to recognize this pattern as part of healing? Fear of being seen. As survival strategies fall away, people often worry. What if people don't like the real me? What if I'm not enough without my accomplishments? What if I'm ordinary? The void can expose these fears before confidence has a chance to grow. Learning to rest. This is also a thing. For many trauma survivors, rest feels unsafe or unproductive. They may believe they always need to be accomplishing something. I struggle with this. Healing includes discovering that rest isn't laziness, it's restoration. See my bags? This is a constant issue for me.
Have you seen mine? Believe me, I know.
Yeah. The void often doesn't come with a clear map. So we have to learn to tolerate uncertainty instead of needing every answer before taking the next step. Find meaning instead of answers.
That's my problem. I always want the answer before the meaning.
I think that's the society that we live in. Everybody's in a hurry all the time. Go, go, go.
Yeah.
Sometimes we ask questions like, why did this happen? When a more helpful question could be, how do I want to live because it happened? This shift moves people from being defined by their past to shaping their future, and it gives them their power back. There are hidden gifts of the void, believe it or not. So, what the void can give us. Let's look at this. Space to discover our values. Freedom from old expectations. Stronger intuition. Healthier relationships. A calmer nervous system. Clearer sense of identity. The void isn't comfortable because certainty is gone. In survival mode, even if life was painful, you knew the rules. You knew how to survive. In the void, you don't know what's next. This uncertainty can feel scarier than the pain that you left behind. You start questioning everything. Some people ask, was my childhood really that bad? If that pertains to your childhood, it may not. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I should just go back. This is incredibly common. When pain begins to fade, it's easy to minimize what happened. The void tests your boundaries. The people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. They often don't disappear quietly. They may guilt you, criticize you, pressure you, remind you of who you used to be. The void asks, will you abandon yourself to keep everyone else comfortable? This is your decision, and I hope you make a good one. You may feel disconnected from everyone. Sometimes you don't fit in with your old friends anymore, but you haven't found your new community yet. We have a Facebook community for this. It's like standing on a bridge. You're no longer where you came from, but you haven't arrived where you're going. You stop recognizing yourself. One day you realize, I don't react the way that I used to. And that can actually be unsettling. Your old identity is disappearing before your new one feels natural.
What if I don't know who I am anymore?
This is probably one of the healthiest questions that you can ask. It means you're no longer living automatically. Instead of asking, Who do people need me to be? Begin asking things like, what matters to me? What makes me feel alive? What kind of person do I want to become? Identity isn't found overnight. It's discovered one choice at a time. Healing removes distractions. Many people discover that they've been using work, relationships, social media, alcohol, food, busyness to avoid themselves. But the void removes those distractions. And now you're sitting with yourself. This can feel terrifying.
Ooh.
Bless you.
Oh, God. My bad. Ooh.
You ready?
Yeah.
But it's also where your real healing begins. The void also teaches patience. Trauma taught us everything was urgent. The void teaches us that not everything needs to happen today. Some things grow slowly. Trust, identity, peace, healthy relationships. You might feel behind. You might grieve lost years, compare them, yourself to everyone else. I should already be doing this. I'm too old for that. I wasted my life. Healing reminds us there isn't one timeline for becoming healthy. You're learning to trust your body again. For years, your body may have been sending danger signals constantly. In the void, you're asking, can I trust what I feel? Learning to recognize true danger versus old trauma response is a huge part of healing. And this isn't something that happens in one lesson, one podcast, one book, one conversation. This is constant maintenance. The void teaches us how to receive. Many survivors don't know how to receive. They know how to give. A lot of people don't know how to receive love, compliments, rest, kindness, support. Receiving can feel like they're vulnerable. Sometimes nothing's wrong. Okay, that sounds simple. But for trauma survivors, it's revolutionary. You wake up, nothing bad happened. Nobody's angry. No crisis needs fixing. There's no emergency, no chaos. And your brain says, something's wrong, it's too quiet. Because peace is unfamiliar. Boy, did I deal with that. One day, peace becomes familiar. And this is healing. The void is where your faith is tested. Not necessarily religious faith, but faith that you'll be okay. Healing is working. You're becoming someone healthier. This uncomfortable season has a purpose. Sometimes healing requires believing in growth before you can see it. Unfortunately, the worst part about this particular episode is the reality that you can't skip this part. And this is the part that I think was probably the most difficult for me personally. What about you? Skipping this whole void.
Yeah, that's mostly what I tried to do, but with my luck, not so much of skipping. I tried to ignore it. Didn't work. So I had to deal with the void.
Yeah, me too. Many of us, we jump into relationships, new jobs, new projects, new distractions because silence is uncomfortable.
Mine was the distraction or the job or both.
Yep. Healing asks us to stay long enough to learn what the void has to teach. So, one idea. The void is where your values replace your survival rules. So, for an example, old survival rule. If everyone else is okay, then I'm okay. New value. My needs matter too. Old survival rule. Never make anyone upset. New value. I can be kind without abandoning myself. Old survival rule. I have to earn love. New value. I'm worthy of love because I exist. Old survival rule. Keep the peace at all costs. New value. Healthy relationships can survive honest conversations. Old survival rule. My worth comes from what I do. New value. My worth isn't something I have to prove. This week, don't ask yourself, what should I do next? Ask yourself, what is the void trying to teach me? Then sit with the answer before you rush to fill the silence.
How do I know I'm actually healing and not just stuck?
Healing doesn't always feel like moving forward. Sometimes it looks like pausing before reacting. Instead of exploding, saying no when you used to say yes, recognizing red flags sooner, apologizing when you're wrong, choosing peace over chaos, asking for help instead of pretending that you're okay. You may still have hard days, you may still get triggered, but if you're responding differently than you did a year ago, you're healing. Progress isn't becoming perfect. Progress is becoming more aware, more intentional, more compassionate with yourself. So the void gives you clarity. When the chaos quiets down, you finally hear your own thoughts. You begin to realize what you truly believe, what you truly value, what you actually want for the first time. Your choices aren't being driven by survival. The void gives you freedom. You're no longer living by the rule trauma wrote for you. You begin choosing instead of reacting. Freedom isn't doing whatever you want. It's no longer being controlled by fear. The void gives you peace, not excitement, not adrenaline, peace. At first, peace feels strange, but eventually it feels like home. The void gives you boundaries. You finally learn that I don't have to save everyone. I don't have to fix everyone. I don't have to carry everyone. This changes your entire life. Void gives you yourself back. For years, you became whoever you needed to be. Now you finally ask, who am I? Not who do people need me to be, or who do they want me to be. This discovery is priceless. The void gives you healthy relationships. When unhealthy relationships fall away, there's finally room for healthy people. Not everyone leaves. The right people stay, and new people often enter your life. The void gives you rest. Many trauma survivors have never truly rested. The void teaches you you don't have to earn rest. You don't have to deserve rest. You simply need it. The void gives you confidence. Every difficult day you survive teaches you something. I can handle the hard things. Eventually, your confidence, it goes up. It stops coming from controlling everything. It comes from trusting yourself. The void gives you purpose. Many people discover that their purpose after healing, is not because trauma was good, but because healing allows them to use their experiences, that wisdom, with wisdom, instead of simply carrying them with pain. The void gives you hope. When you realize I survived this season, you begin believing that you can survive future ones too. Hope becomes something that you experience, not just something that you wished for. The void gives you gratitude. Little things become meaningful. A quiet morning, healthy friendship, peaceful home, good night's sleep. You begin appreciating things that survival never lets you notice. The void gives you your voice. You stop apologizing for existing. You stop shrinking. You stop explaining every decision and you begin speaking honestly, even when your voice shakes. The void gives you choice. Trauma often teaches us to react. The void teaches us to choose. Choose your relationships. Choose your boundaries. Choose your values. Choose your future. This is freedom. Um, let's see, what else? I think a lot of this is going to be in the workbook because we're running out of time here. The void isn't empty, it's sacred. It's the place where survival lets go and your authentic life finally has room to begin. The void teaches discernment. The void restores curiosity. Trauma teaches us to ask, what's the danger? Healing allows us to ask, what's possible? The shift changes everything. The void gives you permission to dream. Many survivors stopped dreaming years ago because survival consumed all of their energy. The void asks, if nothing was impossible, what would you build? Where would you go? Who would you become? The void teaches emotional tolerance. So instead of escaping difficult emotions, you learn, I can survive sadness. I can survive disappointment. I can survive uncertainty. This is emotional resilience. The void teaches delayed gratification. Trauma often creates urgency, but the void teaches patience, healthy relationships, healthy careers, healthy confidence. They all take time. The void becomes your teacher. So instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You begin asking, what is this season trying to teach me? That mindset transforms suffering into growth. The void helps you recognize healthy love. So when chaos isn't your normal anymore, you begin noticing qualities you may have overlooked before, such as like consistency, honesty, respect, accountability, emotional safety. Healthy love may feel quieter than what you're used to, but it's often much more secure. The void teaches contentment. Not every day has to be extraordinary. Sometimes healing looks like making dinner, laughing with your family, reading a book, taking a walk, sleeping throughout the night. Those ordinary moments become extraordinary because your nervous system can finally enjoy them. The void reveals your strengths. You discover strengths that you never realized that you had. Resilience, wisdom, compassion, patience, courage, perseverance. Not because trauma was a gift, but because you chose to heal from it. The void gives your story a new ending. Your trauma explains part of your story. It doesn't get to write the ending. The void is where you pick up the pen. The void teaches you to tolerate not knowing. Trauma often makes us desperate for certainty. Are they mad at me? Is this relationship okay? Am I making the right decision? The void teaches you that you don't need every answer immediately to keep moving forward. The void exposes. So what you've been chasing, many people realize that they weren't chasing love. They're chasing approval, validation, acceptance, safety, being chosen. These aren't the same thing. The void teaches you that loneliness and solitude are different. Loneliness is different, unseen. Solitude is choosing to spend time with yourself. One drains you, the other can restore you. The void gives your nervous system a chance to catch up. Sometimes your mind knows that you're safe before your body does. Healing isn't just learning new ideas, it's giving your body time to believe them. The void is where forgiveness becomes a choice. Not forgetting, not excusing, but deciding that someone else's actions won't determine your future. This includes forgiving yourself. The void teaches you to stop performing. So I ask you, if no one were watching, what kind of life would you build? Many survivors have spent years performing strength, happiness, or perfection. The void invites authenticity. The void changes your definition of success. Success may no longer mean more money, more achievement, more recognition. It may become sleeping peacefully, feeling emotionally safe, having honest relationships, enjoying an ordinary day. That's pretty much a profounding shift. This avoids teaching gratitude. The void teaches you gratitude without guilt. Many survivors struggle to enjoy good things because they feel that they don't deserve them or because others are still suffering. Healing includes learning that gratitude isn't selfish. The void is where wisdom is born. Knowledge becomes from reading. Wisdom comes from living. The void is often where painful experiences begin to transform into understanding, compassion, and perspective. The void helps you rewrite your inner narrative. So instead of, I'm too much, I'm not enough, I ruin everything, you begin saying, I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm worthy, I'm allowed to take up space. The void strips away illusions. You stop believing things like, if I can just get them to love me, if I work harder, if I'm perfect, if I sacrifice enough. The void forces you to let go of fantasies and begin accepting reality. This can be painful, but it's freeing. The void teaches acceptance. Acceptance isn't saying that, what happened was okay. It's saying I can stop fighting the fact that it happened. Acceptance frees up energy that was being spent arguing with reality. The void is where control begins to loosen. Trauma often convinces us that if we control everything, we'll stay safe. The void teaches us that some things cannot be controlled. Instead of controlling everything, you learn to respond with flexibility. The void reveals your values. Before healing, decisions are often based on fear. During the void, you begin asking, what kind of friend do I want to be? What kind of parent do I want to be? What kind of partner do I want to be? What kind of person do I want to be? This is where character starts replacing survival. The void teaches self-trust. For years, you may have looked outside yourself for answers. Healing teaches, I can listen to my instincts. I can make mistakes and recover. I can trust myself. The void is where comparison starts to lose its power. You stop asking, why are they further ahead than me? Instead, you ask, am I healthier than I was 6 months ago? Healing becomes personal instead of competitive. The void reminds you that healing is lived, not just learned. You can read every trauma book in the world. Eventually, healing has to be practiced. Having hard conversations, setting boundaries, resting, asking for help, receiving love, making different choices. Knowledge is the beginning. Practice is where change happens. The void teaches you that your feelings are information, not commands. You may feel afraid. That doesn't always mean that you're in danger. You may feel guilty. That doesn't always mean that you've done something wrong. Learning that distinction is life-changing. The void helps you stop. It helps you stop outsourcing your worth. Instead of needing everyone else's approval, you begin asking things like, can I respect the person I'm becoming? This is a very different foundation. It's a very different foundation for your self-worth. The void prepares you for healthy love. Healthy love often feels unfamiliar because it's built on consistency, honesty, respect, repair after conflict, emotional safety. The void gives you time to recognize these qualities before inviting someone new into your life. The void teaches you to mourn the person that you never got to be. We often grieve what happened. We rarely grieve who we might become if trauma hadn't interrupted our childhood. What talents never had a chance? What dreams were put on hold? What parts of you had to stay hidden? That's a different kind of grief. The void is where your nervous system learns that love doesn't have to hurt. Many survivors unconsciously believe that love requires sacrifice, anxiety, chasing, proving, fixing. The void gives your brain time to learn that healthy love feels different. You stop confusing intensity with intimacy. One of the biggest lessons in healing is realizing that butterflies, obsession, and emotional highs aren't always signs of love. Sometimes they're signs of familiarity. Healthy intimacy is often slower, steadier, and safer. The void teaches emotional permanence. When someone disappoints you, it doesn't automatically mean that they'll leave. When someone disagrees with you, it doesn't automatically mean that you're unlovable. This is also a huge change for people who grew up, with unpredictable relationships. The void is where you reclaim your time. Survival steals time. Healing gives it back. You suddenly have hours that used to be spent worrying, overthinking, fixing, arguing, recovering from chaos. Now you get to decide what you do with that time. The void asks a difficult question. If nobody ever apologized, could you still heal? That's a powerful conversation. Many people wait years for closure that never comes. Healing sometimes means choosing to move forward without the apology that you deserved. The void teaches emotional maturity. So instead of asking who's right, you begin asking what's healthy. This is also a completely different way of approaching conflict. The void helps you discover your own voice. Not your parents' voice, not your trauma's voice, not your inner critic, but your own. Sometimes that's the first time that you've ever truly heard it. The void teaches you that healing isn't about becoming fearless. It's about becoming brave enough to keep moving while fear is still present. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's refusing to let fear make every decision. The void is where your life becomes intentional. You stop living on autopilot. You begin choosing how you spend your mornings. You get access to what conversations you have, what kind of environment you create, what legacy you want to leave. That intentionality is one of the greatest gifts of healing. The void is an invitation. Think of it this way: an invitation to stop asking, why did this happen to me? Why wasn't I enough? Why didn't they love me? And to begin asking, what kind of life do I want to create now? What values will guide me? What do I want to become? What will I no longer accept? The void doesn't erase the past. It shifts your attention from the chapters that you couldn't control to the chapters that you still get to write. This week, we're going to discuss the war within your mind to understand thoughts, patterns, and distortions that keep us stuck. I would really, really encourage you to download the workbook, because if I remember off the top of my head, I believe there's 11 cognitive distortions that most people in psychology utilize, but I want to say there's like 21. And obviously we don't have time in a podcast to look at every single one of them. However, I did put them in the workbook for you if you're interested in reading about them. So instead of cutting this podcast into a 3-hour ordeal or 3 different episodes, I left some things in the workbook for you to look at on your time. A couple of updates before we close. So Fab4 Expression moved platforms, and they moved it over to our site, and the store will be available to shop from next week. If you're not familiar with Fab4 Expression, so we're sponsored by, it's part of Unapologetically Reborn. It carries t-shirts and merchandise pertaining to various awareness topics. It's affirmation-based clothing because when you look good, you feel good. If you'd like to check it out, you can go to fab4expression.com. I'd also like to share with you that I created a new Facebook page under Alicia Lynch Author. If you're interested in connecting with me on my books, please check out our Facebook community. Please follow us on whatever platform you listen to us on and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen so you don't miss an episode, since this is a series that's vitally important. This also helps us, with our content, and we can monitor what subjects that people are most interested in. I'd also like to ask you to please go to Facebook if you have one and look us up on Unapologetically Reborn and answer a few questions for me. I will post them. I'd like to know if you find the workbooks helpful. They take me a lot of time. Are you utilizing them? Do you feel like they benefit you? As well as what topics would be of interest to you so we know what to work on. Thank you for listening to Unapologetically Reborn. Anything you want to add?
Nope.
Okay, well, you guys have a great week. Thank you for joining us. This is where survival ends and choices begin.